Hello and welcome to this edition of the Coach Pius Media class. Actually, I was already set to go to bed, okay, before I stumble on this piece of news or story, rather, from a journalist friend, a young journalist who works for a very well known media organization, a newspaper of repute. He has gone for an assignment and has written a story, and he wanted me to go through it before he sends to his oga, to his editor. Okay? And going through it, I saw something that interested me that I feel that you young reporters should know. And of course, that's the whole essence of the Coach Pius media class. We try to spot areas of concern in media writings, media write-ups, media pieces, whatever you want to call it, news stories, features, everything that has to do with the media with a view to teaching what is right. Now, if you are a true journalist, you know what attribution means, right? When you are writing your story. Attribution simply means, in simple language, okay, who said what in your story. As attribution. Who are you attributing a particular paragraph to in your story? Now you went for a United Nations story, for example, and a lot of people spoke. Every line of thought has somebody who is saying something. Okay, that's attribution. Now, in this particular story I read, I saw that the speaker actually represented somebody, okay, in that story. But what my friend did was that he didn't take into cognizance the fact that the speaker actually represented somebody. And so that whatever that person is saying in that story should be attributed to the person he represented and not to herself. And that's one thing that most young journalists do not know. And maybe you never can tell, even some senior journalists, because the truth is nobody knows it all. Okay. And that actually inspired me to discuss this particular issue this evening. Now, when you represent somebody at an event, for instance, the governor is supposed to appear as a guest speaker or as a keynote speaker at an event, and for some reasons couldn't make it. And then he asked his deputy to represent him at that event. Officially speaking, whatever the deputy says at that event, especially if he or she has to read from a script prepared for the governor, okay, then it means that it is the governor that is speaking. So when you are writing your story, it is only the first line that you mention the name of the representative, after which you must continue with the name of the person that is being represented. Take for instance, let's say President Bola Tinubu attended an event through his deputy or through the vice president, for example. In your opening sentence concerning what the president said, of course, you will mention that President Bola Tinubu stated this at so event, okay, represented by Vice President Kashim Shettima. The president noted, or the president said further, throughout that entire story, okay, wherever the vice president speaks, after the first mention of his name as a representative of the president, the attribution goes to the president and not the vice president, because it is not the vice president at this point in time who is speaking. It is officially the president. I think that's simple enough, but it's not that simple, because what you don't know, like some people will say, of course, is superior to you. Okay? So if you are in the habit of using the person who is representing somebody else, or if you are in the habit of attributing the story to somebody who is representing somebody else as a journalist, that is completely wrong. That's the point I'm trying to make. Until or except for any reason, the person who is representing his or her principal says at any point in time while delivering his principal's comment that at this point I would like to add my personal comment, then at that point you can give the attribution to that representative, having stated that he or she was now going to make his or her own personal comment. Okay? But outside that, once it's an official remark and he or she has stated clearly that she is representing somebody else, kindly note that whatever he or she says thereafter, it is the person he or she is representing that is speaking. And so all the attributions must go to that person. It is assumed in the example I made earlier, or I gave earlier, it's assumed in the example I gave earlier that it is the president that is speaking. The only difference is that he was not physically around to make that comment. So he had to delegate somebody to do that on his behalf. Okay? So you don't attribute that comment to the vice president. It is the president that is speaking because he's being represented by the vice president. Professionally speaking. And that is how you should capture it in your write-up. Okay, like I said, it is only the introductory line that we say he is being represented by so person. Whatever he or she says thereafter must be attributed to the person he or she is representing. Please don't make that mistake of using the representative as the subject of that story. It is wrong. Okay? I hope you have learned a thing or two in this. And that is a standard thing to do. Because when I read it, I laughed. I've also seen it in so many other, you know, journalistic pieces where a journalist, a reporter will write a story. So person is represented by so person. For instance, like I said earlier on, Vice President Kashim Shettima is representing President Tinubu at an event, and whatever is being said thereafter, you are attributing it to the Vice President. You keep mentioning the Vice President's name. No, it's completely wrong. Okay? Unless it gets to a point where the Vice President now says, now I want to speak in my own capacity as the Vice President. Then you can go ahead and attribute that aspect of his speech directly to him. So I hope you have learned this today. That is, if you didn't know before now. God bless you.